My very special guest is Dean of the Woods College of Advancing Studies and Executive Director of the Center for Psychological Humanities and Ethics at Boston College. He also serves on the faculty of three departments: formative education, counseling, developmental and educational psychology, and philosophy. Along with Matthew Clemente, he currently has a forthcoming book under contract with Oxford University Press titled Technology and Its Discontents. He is Dr. David Goodman. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here with you, Matt.
I am super excited to have this conversation because I've been doing the show for like 3 years at least, and I've never had the chance to talk to an executive like yourself about those first few critical months having taken the helm of a new position. So I really thought we could kind of get started off by talking about the timeline. Now, in August, officially became Dean of the Woods College of Advancing Studies at Boston College. And I wonder, David, if you might tell us, what, if anything, did you do when you were in those months between when you had been announced and when you first took the role to prepare for stepping into that new role?
It's a great question. Thank you, Matt. And again, thank you for bringing all this together. I too am very excited about this moment in terms of coming into this new leadership role. I'm learning a lot, and so it's a great question. It's going to be a bit of an unusual answer. I knew that what I would need in the lead up to taking on this role would be to take a solid month off. I have never in my professional life had a gap between roles. I've always moved not only from one role to another seamlessly, sometimes it's in overlap where I'm still doing the old job while taking on the new job and making it all work. That's always been my MO, and that's sort of how I run. But this one I knew I'm moving into something that's going to be truly all consuming. It's going to take me up. And if I don't take this time beforehand with my family, if I don't take this time to clear my mind and just sort of create space where the old isn't still playing alongside of the new, that I would not be able to enter in with the type of listening and attunement that I really wanted to bring to it. So I took a month off, and it was a little difficult for me to ask as a part of when the job offer was being put out there, but I knew it would be something really important. And I'm really glad to say that Boston College was very responsive, understood it, and even encouraged it. So that's always a sign of a good employer, right? When they actually can see the merit of what it means to be reflective and giving oneself space.
Yeah, you would imagine if anybody would understand, they would. But I think that it's such a wise and sage thing to do. And I just have a following question to that. You think that's something you would have done earlier in your career? Or is that something that you came to realize like, oh no, based on all those experiences, I need to take this time to fully get ready?
In many ways, I feel like earlier in my career, it just was never even an option to think like that. There were just, you weren't situated such that you had the security to believe that you could step away and not somehow lose out on something or be seen as not being taking yourself seriously. And unfortunately, so many of those narratives are out there that are so powerful and pressured. And I think I lived under those for a long time. And this was the only instance that I feel like I've gotten to, and perhaps it is moving into the executive level. There's some of that, the luxury that comes with that of saying, here's the best version of myself that you'll receive is if I can do this, and that's taken seriously. And I wish that sensibility existed at all levels. But I did not feel that allowance in any previous moments.
Yeah, so there's like the externality of, is it even permissible? But then there's also the internal pressure. I think a lot of us get to that position where we're like just running, trying to finish up everything. And then all of a sudden here it is. And we go right into the next thing.
Yes.
And really rob ourselves of that opportunity to reset. I think a lot of times we undersell or sell short the need we have to recuperate a bit and to get ourselves right so we can fully show up in that moment for the people who are now going to be counting on us.
That's right. Well said.
It's an incredible amount of discernment that, going through to really recognize that about yourself. So we'll keep moving in the timeline. So now you fully arrived. It's early August. My question for you is, did you have any, when you think about like that first week or whatever time frame makes the most sense, I'm sure it was a complete whirlwind, just meeting people and trying to get things situated. But how would you say that you defined any sort of whatever you might have been trying to accomplish, like in those first few days in the office?
I think the first thing I wanted to accomplish, the most important thing, is I registered immediately upon arriving the big question mark that exists in everyone's head. Who is this guy? What is he thinking? What is it going to mean for what we are? I came in many ways with so many ideas about what I wanted to hit the ground running and doing, and could see very quickly this sort of apprehension on all the different faces. And I would hear murmurs of it here and there. And I realized, gosh, the most important thing for me to start with is to just connect with people and to be moving around in this space, getting to know people, what they're doing, having them get to know me, my personality, my sense of humor, to feel sort of allayed of their immediate anxiety that I was going to come in and engage in some shock and awe campaign. I wanted to assure them that I'm really in love with this school, and I don't yet know it. I know it well enough to know that I want to be here, but I want to go through and with them to move this place in the direction it needs to be. And so that meant just being present. There were mornings I'd come in that first week or two, like I just need to go through more documents and understand this and that, wrap my mind around this, get my head under the hood and this way and that. And I thought, you know what, that first hour, that isn't what I should do. I should be walking around with a mug of coffee and just talking with people, walking in and into doorways and just seeing how people were doing, getting a sense of what they were working on and what they were up to, who they are. So that's hard for me. I'm a fast moving human being. And so taking that time, even though I'm a people person all the way through, I tend to be a people person in process. And this is there's a process unto its own of just being available and connecting.
There must have been so many things going on in your mind at once. Clearly, you're given the position not to say, we just want you to come in and make sure nothing ever changes. Like that never happens, right?
Right,
You're
right.
coming in with this expectation of you want things to happen as well. But I think people do always have this natural unknown. The unknown can invent anxiety or
Mhm.
can lead to anxiety. And basically having the empathy towards people, understanding that, they have those questions and even fighting your own nature to say, okay, but there's a part of me that wants to go fast or collect more data. But is that really what my people need right now? I often talk about that in leadership. It's not about you. It's about the mission and it's about the other people. And right in that moment, it sounds like that's where your mind went too, is saying it's about trying to connect with these people.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And to set the tone from the very beginning about what I'm about. And it's not transactional and accomplishment driven. It is us as a community creating really amazing things in the world. And you can't bypass the step of leaning into the community building and seeing one another.
Yeah, and I think that some people have a history, especially in a going concern like yours, where you're taking over, and they might have some preconceived notions. So I like the idea of saying, "I'm present. You can interact with me. I'm curious about how you do what you do." I think that can go a long way, and certainly did in your case.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
When you think about now, we're fast forward in the timeline. Now you've been here a month, you've been here 2 months. This is going back toward the end of last year by now. But when you think about the activities and you got more experience, how did you start to evolve that approach? So you made a lot of time for people in the beginning to try to relieve some anxiety. Once you got over that initial hump, what sort of was next on the docket for you in that your executive mantle?
That's a great question. I think I started bifurcating my energy and time a bit. On one side, I understood that just being present was the early and most immediate thing, and that needed to evolve into me going on an intentional listening tour, truly sitting with each person with structured questions that I could ask them, and lots of time for them to be able to ask me questions and tell me what they were thinking about. And so I met with each and every one of our staff, it's 31 in total, and just spent time getting to know them. I would finish my time with each of them saying, okay, so I'm about to hand you a magic wand and you walk into the Woods College tomorrow morning and this thing is fixed. It's better now. What would that thing be for you? What would you want it to be? And boy, I just learned so much from them in terms of how they responded to that. So on the one side, I kept this listening tour going with staff. And then I also had dean's dinners for students, so I could be hearing them and their experiences, a couple of faculty meetings and happy hours and things like that, just all in the vein of like, what are we? Who are we? Who are you? And sort of having all of that type of information and relationship building, pouring the foundation of what's to come next. So that's on one side, slow moving attentiveness. And then the other side of me, which is very, very fast moving and lunatic. And I started building task forces, and task forces sound like an intense 2 words, but ultimately it is a group of academics, of industry leaders, practitioners, and prospective students to come together around very specific ideas of new types of offerings we could come up with to start building things that can extend us farther into the world in ways that are more attuned to what the world needs right now. So careful attention, listening alongside of building these groups that are gonna create in very short order some amazing new programs with us in the next year or two. So those have been, my energies have been going between these two things, moving forward very rapidly. And that's what I'm accustomed to. The academy is a very slow moving environment oftentimes, especially at institutions so steeped in tradition as Boston College. But I understand this job, this unit, to be the innovation hub, the incubator of new ideas, and what's meant to sort of break the mold of that slow motion version of innovation and move us very quickly forward. So, attunement and intensity
I
alongside each
love
other.
that. I love that balance between the two. So you're taking on input, but you're also taking action because now you've been around for a little bit at this point in the timeline. And I'm sure some of the input came in and reinforced things you mentioned, because you said earlier you had some ideas coming in and weren't coming in completely cold. But at the same time, probably some new things. And
Yes.
I love when you said you asked everybody about their magic wand about what they would like to see fixed. I'm sure everyone agreed 100% with just the same thing. Probably just a small, short list of things, just like
You're right.
everything.
You're absolutely right. Well, and I'll also say this, I made a pretty significant faux pas in my first week. And it was Mary Ellen Joyce, the director of our Masters in Leadership program, that was the one that pointed it out. I appreciated her for it. But here's what it was. I learned in my first day here that one of the things that was most missing was a rudder, an ability to direct in a particular direction, and inability to sort of steer this thing in a direction. There's no real clear sense of where the Woods College is meant to be going. It had been building and creating and doing things, running things very effectively for a while, but didn't know where it was going next. So its mission, its vision, its future. And so I knew we probably needed to do a strategic planning process, and I was excited about that. And so in the first staff meeting, I said to everyone, we're going to be going through a strategic planning process this next year. I'm excited to have the associate deans and myself meeting in a regularized way in order to really come up with this, and looking forward to getting your input at various phases of the process. I think we'll come out of this year with a really clear sense of our North Star and what we're aiming for. And Mary Ellen afterwards said, I liked every single thing about that meeting, except for the fact that you were going to go away and sequester yourself with a senior team here and make decisions and occasionally get our input. Why wouldn't you invite all 31 of us staff who know this place so intimately to join this process from the ground up in every which way? And it's so funny and sometimes I think this is so true as a leader, her sensibility is exactly what I believe in. And I don't know why I didn't think of it. I would want everyone to get their fingerprints all over this and to be a part of it, and to mold the sculpture together. And at the same time, I think I defaulted to a sort of a hierarchical picture of things for whatever reason. And so her calling me on it just called me back to what I really do believe. And so I'm grateful to say all 31 of us are going away on January 30th and 31st to the Dover Retreat Center to vision together, to imagine together the future of the Woods College, and that'll initiate a year-long process. And we'll be in it together, all tethered on the same mountain. So I'm glad for that. But it was a faux pas in the beginning, but I quickly corrected.
Well, it's good for her to have the courage to say something, and good for you to have the wherewithal to take it in and to take a step back and say, you know what, you're right. And I think the other thing that it sparks for me, for people listening in, is this is very much in line with your objectives when it comes to Woods in the first place, where you said trying to become more innovative, more nimble, flatter almost, and now all of a sudden more participative. That type of approach, that you're taking your team away, a larger team, and working on stuff in a very collaborative manner, it's very much in line with that. So I think it all turned out for the best, sounds like.
It's true, but it's interesting you say that. I think oftentimes for me, the temptation is to stay smaller, 2, 3 people, we figure it out and bring it about. The more people you have, well, the more opinions, the more preferences, the more back and forths, the more conflicts, it gets more and more complex. And so if your goal is rapid movement, it sometimes can move against you to have too large a group. And so the temptation can be, let's keep it small and keep it moving, but you lose so much in that, because ultimately, the other 27 people never bought into this thing in the first place. They don't see themselves in it. They're not a part of it. They don't feel like they're an architect of it. Their flesh is not involved in it. And you lose the long game in getting something up and going in the short run. And so it's a lesson I hate to say I have to learn all the time, because in my rashness, when I want to see things move, I don't always take that seriously. So I'm always grateful when other people help slow me down. I need to be paced.
Well, it's definitely tempting to try to cut to the chase with things that have historically worked, but everything's different now too. And I know I don't have as much academic experience, but I have a lot of military experience and had to learn new tricks because the old hierarchical models just weren't working as the conditions evolved. So you talk about, very old institutions that worked in a certain way for a very long time and had to figure out how do we actually maintain what we want, which is being agile and nimble, flexible, but be more collaborative and still get things done quickly. It's one of the more fascinating parts of management science, in my view, is how do we get all the good that comes with all that collaboration without losing or having some of the groupthink or some of the other things that can come along with it. And it's a chapter that's unwritten. So I'm glad that you're living it, not just teaching it. It's good.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you think about the fact that you mentioned there's such a long and storied history for an institution like Boston College and Woods in particular, when you think about that, how does it pose certain challenges as an executive when you are taking over the helm of an ongoing concern like that, something that has been around for a long time? Are there any special considerations or kind of nuances that we should be aware of?
Yeah. I think the great benefit of being at a place with such long history and traditions is its stability, which many institutions don't have the luxury of that stability, right? So having the pylons go so deep into bedrock gives a type of assuredness and confidence and brand building that I don't take for granted as being the very reason why we're here. I mean, it's an amazing thing that we have the strength that we do, and a lot of it comes from that sort of persistence of vision and mission. The liabilities that come with it is oftentimes it could just replicate itself, just sort of keeps going, keeps being what it is without ever really facing a changing world around it. And so that's one of the great beauties of the school that I run here is its imperative is to help the institution, ever to excel, which is the motto of Boston College. But in our sense, we're ever to excel. We're helping the institution ever to excel by making sure it remains truly attuned to the needs of the world. And one of the metaphors I've used with the senior administration here is I think of Boston College as something of a Navy fleet, many different types of vessels, and the primary guts and heart of it is aircraft carriers and large battleships. But then you also have smaller scouting vessels, and I see the Woods College as a scouting vessel. While the whole fleet is moving ever so slowly in one direction together, we're able to go off into the horizon and sort of see what's ahead, what things are looking like, inclement weather, new islands that we might want to explore and such, and bring it back and help change the direction of the fleet accordingly. And we have the nimbleness to do that just by the way we're structured in our faculty and staff model. And that's exhilarating. And it's wonderful as we build good relationships with the battleship and aircraft carrier stuff to see them start respecting the intel we bring back and all of that and see us as partners in the long game journey. It's just very gratifying to be that and to be a part of an institution that truly its bread and butter is staying tradition laden, but to have a unit like ours, bring about some of these cutting edge realities of the world. It's a wonderful thing to be a part of.
Yeah, complementary strengths when we get them right. That's for sure.
Mhm.
And you mentioned a little bit earlier, so now here as one of those advanced scout vessels, and you have this proclivity to want change. You're a very dynamic leader. How do you balance that natural tension, probably even within yourself, not even just within your staff, when it comes to wanting to run really fast, but at the same time not go so fast that you end up losing your people along the way, so to speak? How have you sort of either made peace with that or operationalized that?
So my wife was a cross-country runner when she was in high school, and she absolutely loved running. I was a football player, a basketball player, and a baseball player. I could run short bursts really, really fast, but hated long distance running. I mean, PE in high school for me when we had to run the mile was torture. I just couldn't do it. I wasn't built that way. Well, she convinced me that my main issue was one of pacing, that
Mhm.
I hadn't learned how to enjoy long distance running because all I knew how to do was sprint. And so she would take me on runs and I had to run at the same pace as her.
Mm.
And I came to absolutely love running
Oh,
and could run long distances with her. But I came to also know I needed her to pace me. And that if I ran at my own pace, and then sometimes I'd go on a run without her and I would not be able to go as long. And it was partly because I needed that. And so similarly, I try very hard to be attentive to where my staff is at and to be seeing if we're running together or if I'm starting to eke ahead or if I'm starting to think I'm running by myself and that they'll catch up at some point. So I think because I have this metaphor and because I've been burned in the past, seeing, I'm moving us forward and then I find that the team isn't with me, that coming into this role, that's a lesson that I think I'm now in a sense hyper vigilant about. I see even the markers in myself when I'm starting to get agitated because it's not moving faster. I don't ask the questions as much. Why aren't they catching up? It's okay. I know this place in myself. Let me take account of it and let me check in what's going on here in sort of the larger ecosystem. And so I think due to this being a liability that I know I have, a prejudice that I have, I try to remain very vigilant to it.
it is a blend, right? So we need that forward movement, that dynamism from our executives, but at the same time, I like the synergy or some better term than that, when it's the pacer and the runner finding their rhythm together, because there is a right pace. I think when we skew to either extreme, it's devastating, because if we move fast and we've skipped over the details, it frustrates customers, it frustrates all the stakeholders,
Yeah.
employees for sure. But then if we don't go fast enough, then are we really challenging and pushing hard enough? So we can't have either extreme, but we need to find that pace together. I really like that analogy, that metaphor. It's beautiful in that way.
Yeah.
And I think that it does create a certain tension inside. And I think that for the listeners who are executives or leaders of teams, and you want to go a lot faster, you have to earn that right. You have to be able to have developed the agility, the trust, the speed, the safety within your teams before you can ask of them to go as fast as you might like. I talk to a lot more executives who say, my team just won't go fast enough. Then I talk to ones who say, and we've already done all the work that would allow us to go fast and we're still not going fast enough. That part's harder to come by.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think you're right. You have to earn it. And part of the earning it is just having the type of relational depth with your team such that for me, that would allow me to see we're not moving fast because there's some interpersonal dynamic, some human drama that's at play. And that's not acceptable. Like let's work that through so we can untangle those knots that are slowing us down versus you've already asked us to do 7 other things and we are getting a little bit of priority confusion and fatigue. Like the basic human finitude means that we can't do all this. Like those are 2 very different reasons for not being able to keep pace. And so being able to have the relational depth and capital to discern the difference between the 2 and even ask the questions that would allow you to see which is happening, I think is also part of that. Because you're right, like just letting the team pace you is not the answer, because the team's pace could be quite slow for a variety of reasons, some of which
Yeah.
could actually, you can unleash them and not
Yeah.
need them to, stay so tied up.
All the more reason to go back to that relationship, that moment that you talked about with Mary Ellen too, to have somebody who sees something. I'm going to bring this to your attention because you might not see it the same way. It's fine if you see it differently, but I want you to be aware of this. As we pace, that's kind of how you have to check in with people who are very different from you on your team, people who are more detail oriented, risk, averse. Be sure to check in with those people too, and have created enough safety for them to say, you know what, I'm feeling like we're moving a little fast here.
Yeah.
We've skipped some steps. This could come back to bite us a little bit. Say, okay, great. Hear you. We're still going, or that's good. Let's actually come offline for a second and talk about that.
Absolutely.
That's great. So here we are. We're talking about the Master of Science program, for example, where I'm very proud to be a part of that, teaching self-awareness and teaching under the HR practice as well. When you think about, because I'm thinking about the listeners of the podcast here, a lot of leadership, business, HR. When you think about those aspects at Woods, for example, what are you excited about today, David? And when you think about the future and you've had a chance to evoke even more of this change, what excites you about tomorrow as well?
Hmm. Well, when it comes to the leadership program, I mean, it's a dime a dozen in terms of leadership programs. There are so many programs out there in the world, and us having one of them as well is not what excites me. It is what it's made out of, and the faculty we have, and the curriculum that has been developed that really centers the 500-year-long tradition of Ignatian approaches to pedagogy, but also to understanding how we think, feel, and exist in the world. At the core of so much of the Jesuit tradition is a deep ethical sensibility, and an emphasis on indifference, sort of holding things indifferently, such that one is available to various options that might unfold, so that one can discern the greater good. These are so core to what it is to be a good leader, so fundamental to good leadership. Out there's so many different fancy leadership models with a lot of different names and terminology, and many of them are sort of fad-like, right? They're big bursts in the pan, and all of them have good wisdom in them. But there is something to me of us deriving this model from this very long-standing, half millennia long tradition that around which there's been so much conversation, around which there have been many communities built, many organizations formed, very successful in nature, that we get to have such a leadership program in our school, and that faculty come in and often, and I would be curious about your experience, come in and see in it such richness and depth, things that jibe with what they had already known, thought, and felt, but now have language for, and a different register that they get to then bring up to students. To my mind, that's the very best of what we've got here at Boston College is this longstanding tradition that gets to be a source of nourishment to future leaders and existing leaders. And I think that's true across all of our programs. We're trying to lace every program we have with what it means to be an ethically sensible being who is capable of thinking about whole persons in all decisions made. And so that's what gets me really excited. That's what has me wanting. I don't want to build lots of new programs to churn them out in the world. I want to build programs that are transformative to the world because of the nature of the student and a lot of those countercultural elements that I think we bring to them.
Yeah, I think it's very well said. And it's something that is absolutely transforming in the world of work based on the research that I've done as well. When you think about the nature of the ethics, people are looking to, in terms of consumers, to do business with companies that are good actors, for example. Well, the same is happening with employees too. They want to work for companies that are making a difference in the world, that treat them fairly, that treat the planet well, that treat one another well, that have societal contributions, et cetera. So I think that the Ignatian foundation of a leadership program is very unusual, to be honest with you, if you're looking across the market as you described it. And for those of us who've come in to start to teach a little bit, or those of us who maybe if we're not teaching, we're just saying, is this really how business has to be? Just continuously focused on a single agenda of economics? It just doesn't feel like that's the sum total of what we're capable of as a society and an economy, et cetera. People aren't putting up with it anymore. And especially Gen Z, when you think about the ethical dimensions, they're making decisions about where to work. I think everything's pointed right in this direction. But the leadership that's coming out of Woods, for example, is a huge part of why I'm excited to be there and continuously learn every day from my students and from the faculty and from everybody that's involved. So yeah, I think you're spot on. I'm anxious to see what the North Star that emerges, because as long as it's got that sliver of what you've just described, count me in.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to be having faculty focus groups as well, so you'll be invited. It'll be great. I look forward to hearing
Awesome.
your input.
Well, I'll be representing the listeners. You'll be loud and proud in my ears as we have those types of conversations. And I'll tell you, I'll shift gears to this for us, David. I always like to have a fun trivia question here. It never goes well because it's me. This is how it works. But I thought I'd have AI ask us a trivia question. Boston College mascot, of course, is the Eagles. We're going to get a trivia question here about Eagles. And I know almost nothing about Eagles, I'm ashamed to say.
Me neither.
Here comes our trivia question. What is the name of the famous American rock band with the eagle as their mascot? You think that's just the Eagles? Is AI that basic? It might be.
I mean, I was overthinking it. So if you might have just beaten me very easily.
Maybe AI just isn't as clever as we think it is. Let's find out. It's absolutely correct. It was. The Eagles are a famous American rock band. There we go. So that was just
AI underperformed for us in that moment.
It certainly did. So there you go. Humans 1, AI 0. David, I give you a much more sensible question, which is where can my listeners go to learn more about you and about Woods College of Advancing Studies at Boston College?
Well, if you go to the Boston College website, you type in Woods College of Advancing Studies, and you will find us there with all the information. And then on my LinkedIn page as well, there's a wealth of information. Would welcome you to look it up.
Awesome. Listeners, I'm going to have those links for you in the show notes. You're only one click away from connecting with David, learning more about all the great stuff that he and all of us are trying to do over at Woods. And David, I just can't thank you enough for tackling this topic that I've never had the chance to talk about on my show. Really enjoyed having you on and sharing your insights with our listeners.
Thank you, Matt. You're wonderful.